All right, so get this. We're diving into some pretty wild stuff today. Oscars, the drama, international relations getting a little heated, and even, believe it or not, the secrets to a good night's sleep.
It's really fascinating. These topics may seem random, but they actually reveal some of the most important trends, shaping our world right now.
Yeah, I mean, who knew that the Oscars could be so geopolitically charged?
Right.
Speaking of which, the 97th Academy Awards they're happening today, March 2nd, 2025. Anyone else feel like, are we supposed to be experts before the red carpet even starts?
Well, this year's ceremony, it feels particularly significant, don't you think? Emilia Perez was the clear frontrunner. I mean, it had, 13 nominations, but then, those controversial tweets from the star, Carla Sofia Gascon, really threw a wrench in things.
Oh, yeah, it's a real-life plot twist. So do you think that the Academy is maybe moving away from simply, rewarding artistic merit and kind of factoring in like a whole new level of social commentary with their choices?
It's a definite possibility. I mean, look at Honora with its story of, a sex worker, the world of Russian oligarchs. I mean, it's a strong contender now. That win at Cannes, the Palme d'Or, gave it some serious street cred. And then there's all those wins from the producers, directors, and writers guilds.
So it sounds like the Academy may be kind of leaning toward films that tackle those more complex societal issues, which I guess is pretty fascinating in itself. But then there's Conclave, that papal thriller with Ralph Fiennes. It snagged awards at the BAFTAs and the SAG Awards. And with Pope Francis being ill right now, the timing's, it's almost eerie, isn't it?
Oh, the timing. It definitely adds another layer of intrigue for sure. But we can't forget about the bigger picture here. Hollywood has had, a tough year. Box office dips, those massive 2023 strikes, and, even the LA fires had an impact on production. I think this year's Oscars, they're not just about awards. They're about trying to, bring back that wonder, that excitement around movies.
Yeah, speaking of excitement, I was reading about that pre-Oscars dinner. Adrian Brody, Demi Moore, Jeremy Strong, Ralph Fiennes, Fernando Torres. It's like a who's who of Hollywood.
It is.
All this talk of Hollywood glamour makes me think about, rest and rejuvenation, that sort of thing. You mentioned a cookbook that explores the link between food and sleep. I have to admit, I'm intrigued, but also a little skeptical.
I get the skepticism, but the research in Eat Better, Sleep Better, it's pretty compelling. They go into all the science behind high fiber diets and how they're correlated with improved sleep quality.
So it's not just warm milk before bed or something.
No, not exactly. It's more about specific food combinations. They actually help your body produce, sleep regulating hormones. They even have, get this, a 28-day meal plan in the book. So clearly they're serious about this whole, sleep through diet thing.
So we went from the glitz and glam of Hollywood to the science of sleep. This deep dive is, wow, already taking us on quite a journey. But now let's shift gears a little bit to something a bit more, tense. The situation between the U.S. and Canada, things are heating up, and not in a good way. Those new tariffs that President Trump imposed seem to be causing, quite a stir along the border.
It's more than just a stir, though. These tariffs, they're having real consequences for people. Increased prices, economic strain, even some tension in personal relationships,
The article really highlighted how interconnected these border towns are, both economically and socially. It's not just some abstract politics. These tariffs are really hitting people where it hurts. Take Point Roberts, Washington, for example, a U.S. town completely surrounded by Canada. They're essentially begging the Canadian government for an exemption, because their lives are just so intertwined with Canada.
Yeah, their situation, it emphasizes just how much of a human impact these political decisions can have. It's a stark reminder that what happens on that global stage can have, very real consequences for everyday people.
So from trade wars and border tensions, we're now jumping into the world of cybersecurity. That article about Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE as they call it, it's a little, unsettling to say the least.
It definitely raises some red flags. I mean, DOGE employees, they have access to some incredibly sensitive data. Information that could really be detrimental to, national security if it fell into the wrong hands.
Yeah.
And their track record with cybersecurity, it's not exactly reassuring.
It's like something out of a spy thriller. Imagine AI being used to connect the dots and uncover classified operations and expose all this sensitive information. It's like we're teetering on the edge of a very, very slippery slope.
Yeah, and in the potential for AI to be weaponized, it's a very real concern. It's not just about data breaches anymore. It's about It's about algorithms, sophisticated algorithms that can analyze and exploit this data in ways that in ways that we can't even imagine.
It's a lot to process, really. Speaking of things that are hard to process, let's talk about the war in Ukraine. Zelensky's visit to the White House, it didn't really go as planned, did it?
It was a pretty tense encounter. That public clash with President Trump has really put U.S. support for Ukraine in jeopardy, leaving the country in a pretty, precarious position.
Yeah, the article mentioned that the UK is kind of stepping up, pledging export financing for Ukraine's air defense and even hosting a summit to rally their European allies. It feels like there's been a pretty major shift in the global power dynamic, wouldn't you say?
It's definitely a development to watch. Europe, which was once so reliant on the U.S. for leadership, is now having to consider a more, independent stance in this conflict.
And inside Ukraine itself, there's this surge of pro-Zelensky sentiment, even amongst his former critics. It's like the war has, in a way, strangely, it's unified the country.
Yeah, it's an interesting paradox. In the midst of all this chaos and devastation, you have this growing sense of national unity and a renewed determination to resist.
So from Hollywood to sleep science, from trade wars to cyber espionage, and now the war in Ukraine, this deep dive it's covering some serious ground.
And we're not done yet. There's still so much more to explore.
Okay, so let's keep going then. Next up, we're heading over to Spain, where things are actually looking pretty bright.
Indeed. Spain's economy is, it's booming.
Yeah.
And they're bucking a pretty major global trend while doing it.
Wait, what trend? You've got to fill me in here.
We'll delve into that right after. Oh, just kidding. No sponsors. Let's just dive straight in. So Spain's economic boom, it's actually, it's fueled in part by their welcoming stance towards, foreign workers. They're seeing it as an opportunity, not a threat.
Wow, that's really refreshing to hear, considering all the, the anti-immigration rhetoric these days. It sounds like they're actively embracing diversity.
Exactly, and it's working for them. The article mentioned a company, Bona REA, I think it was called, with employees from, get this, over 60 countries. They see these foreign workers as, essential to their success, and they even offer support, to help them integrate into the community.
It's amazing all the cultural richness that must exist within that one company. It really makes you wonder, if other countries could maybe learn a thing or two from Spain's approach. But speaking of changing landscapes, the tech world is saying goodbye to an old friend. Skype is shutting down in May. Remember those grainy video calls?
It really is the end of an era. Skype was, pioneer. It totally changed how we connect with each other. It's a little, I guess, bittersweet to see it go, but it's also a sign of how quickly technology evolves,
It really does make you wonder what the next big shift will be. But before we get too lost in the future, let's bring it back down to Earth. I guess to the moon. Seems like everyone's trying to get a piece of that lunar action these days.
It's not just a two-player game anymore.
Yeah.
Private companies are really stepping up. Firefly Aerospace, they just pulled off a fully successful moon landing. That's huge, especially considering, the history of lunar landings, successful and not so successful.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see these private companies kind of pushing the boundaries of space exploration. But speaking of pushing boundaries, let's go back to that article about DOGE and its access to, intelligence secrets for a second. It's one thing to improve government efficiency, but this seems like it could have some serious implications for national security.
It is. It's a very delicate balancing act. On one hand, there's the potential to really streamline, government processes and make things more efficient. But on the other hand, there are some very legitimate concerns about privacy, security, and the potential for, I guess, abuse of power.
The thing that really stood out to me was the potential for AI to be weaponized in this context. If sensitive data gets into the wrong hands, AI could be used to connect seemingly unrelated pieces of information, and potentially expose classified operations. It's a bit of a scary thought.
It is. It's a very real concern. We tend to think about AI in terms of its, positive applications. But this article, it really highlights the potential for, I guess, for darker purposes as well.
It feels like we're entering uncharted territory, and the rules of the game they're changing as we speak. And speaking of rewriting the rules, remember that article about Timothée Chalamet and the Oscars? If he wins Best Actor tonight, he'll be the youngest ever.
That would be a pretty remarkable achievement, a real sign of a generational shift in Hollywood.
But this year's Oscars, they feel like more than just a celebration of, individual achievements. It's almost like a referendum on the state of the industry itself, considering all the challenges it's been facing.
I agree. It's a chance to celebrate resilience and creativity, the enduring power of storytelling.
Okay, let's switch gears for a sec and talk about a different kind of storytelling, the one playing out in U.S. politics and cybersecurity. That article about DOGE and its access to sensitive data, it really got me thinking.
It's definitely a complex issue with, profound implications. There are valid arguments on both sides. Some argue that streamlining, government processes through technology like AI can really improve, efficiency and responsiveness. But others are concerned about privacy violations and data breaches and even the erosion of civil liberties.
Yeah, it's tough. We want our government to be effective, but
Yeah.
we also want our rights and freedoms protected. Finding that right balance, it's crucial.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that we need to be having, as a society.
Hmm.
How do we harness the power of technology while also safeguarding our fundamental rights?
It's a question that's, it's only going to become more pressing as technology continues to advance at this crazy pace. But hey, speaking of exponential advancements, let's jump back to that ongoing saga of lunar exploration. It seems like everyone and their dog is trying to get a piece of the moon these days.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The race to the moon, it's no longer just a competition between superpowers. It's a global endeavor.
Yeah.
With private companies playing a pretty pivotal role.
I was really impressed by Firefly Aerospace's, successful moon landing. It's really a testament to the growing capabilities of the private sector in space exploration.
It is. and let's not forget about Japan's, they're less than perfect, but still impressive moon landing. Landing sideways. Talk about a bold move. It's a testament to their ingenuity and their ability to think outside the box.
It's like a modern day space race, but with a much more diverse cast of characters.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to Spain and their open door policy towards foreign workers. It's a powerful example of how embracing diversity can actually lead to economic growth and prosperity.
It really challenges that prevailing narrative that immigration is a threat to economic stability. Spain's success story suggests that a more inclusive approach can actually benefit everyone involved.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the best solutions, they come from challenging conventional wisdom and being open to new perspectives. Speaking of new perspectives, let's circle back to that fascinating article about the connection between food and sleep. I have to admit, I was a little skeptical at first, but the more I learn about it, the more intrigued I become.
It's understandable to be skeptical, especially with all the conflicting information out there about diet and health. But the research in Eat Better, Sleep Better, it's pretty compelling.
What I found interesting was the emphasis on food combinations. It's not just about, eating specific superfoods or whatever. It's about understanding how different nutrients they work together to support our body's natural, sleep regulating processes.
It's a holistic approach. Recognizing that our bodies are complex systems and that what we eat can have a really profound impact on our overall well-being, including our sleep.
It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are right in front of us. We don't always have to rely on complicated technology or expensive treatments to improve our health.
Sometimes it's about making informed choices and taking a proactive approach to our health.
And sometimes it's about challenging our assumptions and being open to new ideas.
Speaking of challenging assumptions, let's revisit that contentious issue of DOGE and its access to sensitive data. While there are, legitimate concerns about privacy and security, it's also important to acknowledge the potential benefits of leveraging technology to improve government efficiency.
It's complex. We want our government to be effective and responsive to the needs of its citizens, but we also need to make sure that our privacy and our security are protected.
Finding that balance is crucial. We need to find ways to harness the power of technology while also establishing strong safeguards to prevent abuse and protect our fundamental rights.
It's a challenge that's only going to become more pressing as technology continues to evolve.
And as we grapple with these complex issues, it's essential to engage in thoughtful dialogue, consider different perspectives and be willing to, I guess, challenge our own assumptions.
It's about recognizing that there are, well, rarely simple solutions to complex problems.
And that the best way forward is often through, collaboration, compromise, and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances.
Speaking of adapting to changing circumstances, let's circle back to that article about the war in Ukraine. The situation is, well, it's incredibly fluid, with the U.S. seemingly kind of pulling back from its support role.
It's a concerning development, especially for Ukraine, which has relied so heavily on U.S. military and financial aid.
But it's interesting how other countries are stepping up to kind of fill the void. The UK, for example, they're playing a more assertive role, pledging support for Ukraine's air defense and even hosting a summit to rally European allies.
Yeah, it's a sign of the shifting geopolitical landscape. As the U.S. retreats from its global leadership role, other countries are stepping forward to assert their own interests and influence.
It's a multipolar world, and the rules of engagement are evolving rapidly.
And as these power dynamics shift, we're likely to see more regional conflicts and geopolitical maneuvering.
It's a reminder that we live in a very interconnected world, and that events in one part of the globe can have, ripple effects far beyond their immediate borders.
Or that even seemingly unrelated stories, when you examine them closely, they can reveal deeper trends and connections.
It's like those hidden patterns we were talking about before. Sometimes you have to step back and look at the bigger picture to really see them.
And that's what we're trying to do here, isn't it? To make sense of this complex and ever-changing world, one story at a time.
It's a journey of discovery, and we're all in it together. But speaking of journeys, remember that article about the declining lobster catch in the U.S.?
Ah, yes. The lobsters they're migrating north to cooler Canadian waters.
Mm-hmm.
Even the crustaceans are feeling the effects of climate change.
It's a stark reminder that climate change isn't just some, abstract concept. It's having very real effects on our lives, even down to the seafood we eat.
It's a complex issue with far-reaching consequences, impacting ecosystems, industries, and ultimately our way of life.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of everything, doesn't it? From the oceans to our dinner plates, from international relations to the future of technology. It's all connected in some way.
It's about seeing those connections, understanding the underlying trends, and using that knowledge to navigate the complexities of our world.
Well, on that note, I think we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So before the break, we were talking about those lobsters, migrating north to get away from that warmer water. It's a pretty clear sign that climate change is having, some pretty unexpected effects on our world.
Yeah, it is. It's a reminder that climate change, it's not just some, abstract concept. It's having real tangible consequences on everything, ecosystems, industries, and in the end, our way of life.
It makes you think, even the smallest changes can have these like ripple effects across the entire planet.
And speaking of ripple effects, remember that cookbook you were so intrigued by, Eat Better, Sleep Better? With the 28-day meal plan?
Oh, yeah. It's like they thought of everything. It's amazing, this seemingly simple concept, using food to improve your sleep. It actually connects to a lot of those broader trends we've been talking about.
Right. I mean, think about it. In a world where we're constantly connected, information overload, geopolitical uncertainty, it's no wonder people are trying to find ways to improve their well-being. And sleep is... it's crucial, right, for both our physical and our mental health. And this cookbook, it taps into that desire for, that sense of control and self-care.
It's like a microcosm of all those larger trends we've been talking about. We're all kind of searching for those ways to find balance and stability in this world that feels increasingly chaotic.
Exactly. And it really highlights the interconnectedness of all these topics that, they seem so different, global politics and cybersecurity and then, our personal health and well-being. But it's all connected.
So what does it all mean? What's the takeaway from all this whole whirlwind of a deep dive?
I think the main takeaway is this. We live in a world of, accelerating change, It's complex and it's all interconnected. And to deal with this new landscape, we have to be, well, informed and adaptable and engaged.
So be curious, ask questions,
That's right.
challenge our assumptions.
Exactly. And recognize that there are multiple perspectives on every issue. And embracing those diverse viewpoints, it can lead to a much richer and more nuanced understanding of the world.
And sometimes it's about finding those unexpected connections, right? Those hidden patterns that kind of reveal the deeper trends shaping our lives.
As you go about your day, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep connecting those dots. You never know what surprising insights you might find.
This deep dive has been, well, it's been a real eye-opener, a reminder that there's always more to learn and more to discover and more to connect and who knows what fascinating stories are waiting for us in the next deep dive.
I can't wait to find out. Until then, keep exploring and remember the world is full of wonder if you just have to know where to look.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through the headlines. Until next time, stay curious.